Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
That's what it is. Hello, if you're here, no, nobody's here yet. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Revolution. I ended up getting COVID last week, so that was quite a sucked pretty bad. Yeah, so it's nothing to joke about. Everybody's like, oh, it's like a cold, you know. And my kids got it, and my ex got it, and they didn't get it that bad, but for some reason, man, I got it really bad, and it was really tough, you know. The nausea, I don't know. I guess there's a new one going around. It makes you nauseous because I was super nauseous, and I hate being nauseous. And I hate coughing and everything like that. So, yeah, it is what it is. But it lasted honestly, I feel like maybe just almost like 10 days. Like, I feel like it took like at least 7 days to start feeling just normal. Like starting to feel like, because it's kind of a tricky sickness. Like it makes you think you're okay. All of a sudden you get up to go do something. And then the next minute you're like, what's wrong with me? So, even yesterday I was feeling like my energy's been super low. So it was, 11 days. Wow. Yeah. So I think there's a new strand out, but I'm actually like kind of glad I did get the shot because I would not have wanted the vaccine because I don't know what that would be like without the vaccine. So God only knows. I'm still a little upset that I didn't get any superpowers from the vaccine because I was really hoping on that one. But that didn't work out. All right. Well, it is like warm. It's a warm day here in the big city of Washington, Seattle, Washington. And it's really warm in the apartment today. It's probably the lights as well. I got the kids today, so they're in the room playing. So got the COVID. It was what it was. Oh, hold on 1 second. 1 second, please. Parenting. All right, sorry. Parenting calls. So there's that. Revolution is here. Sorry I had to cancel last week, and sorry guys, they're arguing. I'll be right back. Enjoy the. Oh, I got an autograph from 7 Seconds, probably where I got all of Washington, gave all of Washington COVID. All right, here we are. I'm back. All right, so Lord, help me today. Did you guys see? I don't know if you follow Reverend Vince Anderson on any of your social media stuff, but there's a new documentary coming out called The Reverend, and you've got to check that out. It's going to be really awesome, and it's going to be probably like an independent films all over the place. Also, I got my buddy Jason's shirt on today. I told him, he sent it to me. I don't know if he knows, though, that in the emblem down here that they accidentally put the cross upside down. So, yeah. But besides that, besides having to explain that to the daycare, at my kid's daycare, why I have an upside down cross on my shirt. It was, pretty cool. And you'll never probably ever barely see me in a white shirt. You my friend if I'm wearing your shirt and it's not black or really, really dark navy. but it's got black in it, so kind of looks like I've been bruised. And I have been bruised. Well, just kind of, I guess that's what's been going on. I'm going to talk a little bit about some things I've been learning, just from going through a lot the past week or so. But what was I going to mention? One of the things I was going to mention. Um, oh, hold on one second. Dad, got a dad again. All right, sorry, I'm back. I don't have a babysitter, obviously. But anyway, so been a crazy week. This has been a really, I was really glad we got to have Zoe speak a couple weeks ago. We got a lot of great feedback from there, and from that, and that's been awesome. Try to kind of bring in more voices over time. Unfortunately, we just don't have a budget really to be bringing people on. Which I was going to mention, if you want to support Revolution, I'm going to start with that today. You can go to revolutionchurch.com, and we have not been doing well financially, just purely like this is almost like becoming a hobby at this point for me, which this was how I made my living, but I have another job right now that's paying the bills. I'd really like to get back to making Revolution full time and a major priority, though, as it always has been in my life. But right now, we really could use your support. So if this is something you get something out of, or you like the work we're doing, please consider supporting this work. I'm always going to try to do something where I'm communicating with you guys. It's just we lost a donor who just decided we were too much for them, and they were kind of a big supporter, and they just felt like we were too inclusive, to be honest with you. And so, and I get it, can't force anybody to stick around and support us, but they were one of our bigger supporters. And so they stopped supporting us. So that's the problem, is when you have like a one big person you kind of support on rather than a bunch of small people supporting your work. So it's been tough. And if it wasn't for my other job right now, I'd be in trouble. Anyhow, Revolution would not even be able to do, I wouldn't even be able to do this right now. So there you go. That's the spiel. I'm not going to promise you a mansion in heaven for supporting Revolution. But it does help us continue to do this work, and a lot less worry. It makes us help worry a lot less. So anyhow, thank you. You can tell it's kind of wearing on me a little bit, but I've been doing this for like 30 years. So, I think it's tough when I don't know what I'm going to do, to be honest with you. I don't know if we will be able to carry this thing on or not, to be honest. Maybe it's a time to start thinking something differently. I love this community, and I love being a part of this community, but I'm really worn out, be honest with you. So that's a little bit what we're going to talk about today is being worn out. And I've had to really make a big decision the past week or two. I've kind of had to make decisions on some things, and I'm going to start with James, from the letter James, James 1, or James, just the letter James, verse 1, 2. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let that endurance have its full effect, so that you might be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. And one of the reasons I wanted to read this today, and I think I read this a few months ago, because I don't often read out of the book of James, um, is that I've realized that I've had to make a decision in my life if I'm going to be bitter towards certain people. And if I'm going to be able to show, like I feel like in a lot of, lately I've had a few relationships um, where I've done nothing but show grace, 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 grace. And I'm sure we all go through this, and this is why I'm sharing it with you. And it just continue to just like not get anything back. And continue to be unappreciated, not really even treated like a friend or a human in a couple of relationships. And these are relationships that are very close relationships. As you all ought to know, I'm introverted. And so it's been really tough. It's been really tough to decide, do I want to, and I realized that I was starting to like harden my heart towards these people, like just completely shut down, and go cold. And it was hard to make the decision, because I've practiced grace my whole life. I've preached grace my whole life, and I found grace to always be something that was, for me, a gift, really, like not just a gift of like accepting it, but a gift of showing it to other people. And and it's been really tough this past few weeks to share it with other people. It's been really tough for me to share it with these people in my life. And so I was just driving in my car, and I was just thinking, like, am I going to let this get the best of me? Am I going to let my anger, am I going to let my hurt, am I going to let my pain and my resentment and my worries get the best of me? And I can say at this point, I've decided not to. I've decided to try to take the higher road. But it's difficult. It's difficult to continue to care about people, and you have to like make that decision when they don't treat you well, and it's tough. It's tough, and these are really close personal relationships. And I was thinking about the book in Galatians, where when Paul's saying, like, be careful of biting and devouring one another. Beware of hurting one another. Beware of tearing each other apart, because you may become consumed by each other. And often I think we don't realize that we consume people, or we don't realize what other people are going through. And everybody's going through something, especially right now in this world. I mean, like, my rent goes up this month. Groceries are expensive for all of us, I bet. It's like we're all struggling to make ends meet. It doesn't seem like any politician, conservative or liberal, gives a real damn about us as human beings and about this country. This country has seemed to really turn into shit, to be honest with you, over the past few years. And it's really sad. It's just sad to see, like, and then we're at each other's throats, because we don't often have room for nuances in our lives and things like that, where we can disagree well with each other. And that's been a big part of what we're trying to do here, is learn to disagree well, and to be able to have hard conversations. And I guess what I'm wanting to share with you guys is, like, I deal with that every day. It's like, I think of like Corinthians 13, love never gives up, never loses hope, is faithful, endures through every circumstance. I think about those ideas, those choices that we have to make every day is like so. So I guess what I'm saying today is like grace is a choice. Grace is a choice that we often have to make to give to other people, to show to other people, and that we have to learn to live with our own pain, to endure every circumstance. And that's not easy, but that's what people want to know. Like, why Christianity? Why this faith? Why that? It's because I feel like that's what it's called me to do. Is like that's where the heavy work is, the heavy lifting is done. The heavy lifting isn't done fighting to take away people's rights. The heavy lifting isn't for me to like try to destroy other people's lives or to decide who gets grace and who doesn't, and who's Christian enough and who's not, and whose theology is correct and whose theology. That's not where the heavy lifting is. For me, the heavy lifting is loving people when they don't love back. Loving people when they maybe don't even have the tools to love back. And trying to be patient with people. And patient with others when I know they'll say things to me and not realize like I'm going through something else, and like having to learn to not react right away out of the anger and out of the hurt. A few weeks ago, I told you guys like I did that really hard the other day. It's like somebody gave me a really tough time and really disagreed with me, and I did not disagree well back with them. Like I really let them have it, and then they shared my post about me being upset, and they shared a private message that and it was really tough. Like I was really like lost. I was like you know but it was also I was going through a lot of stuff. I'd been rejected by my father, and in a really tough way, and I kind of let loose on this other person. But I also was feeling like there's no room for nuances, and we can't have conversations, and we can't, it gets despairing, and it feels like we're sinking. And so, I literally like I'm sitting in my car, driving home in traffic, and I'm going to myself like I have to, and I see this like I've learned to remove toxic people from my life. I see what you're saying, but for me, it's like sometimes I don't have that choice. My work, I don't always have that choice to like get rid of people. Oh, they're toxic. It's like, well, are they toxic or are they hurting? What's in their life? What's been brought into their life that makes them that way? What are they going through that's causing them to suffer? And it's not my job, at least in my work as a pastor, quote, in quotes, I guess, is my job is to love people and to not judge them and to find out like, so when I say someone's toxic, I'm saying, well, that means they're bad for everybody. But really is why? Why do they feel that way? What have they been through? What hurts them? What are they not being hurt? Is there mental health issues? Is there deep pain from childhood? Are they going through a lot? And so, like, because often I think we just throw that term around, and this toxic term around, and it's just anybody who doesn't agree with us politically or doesn't agree with us, like, personally, or, people we don't like, like, how are we going to change, people to be a gay affirming, for example? Like, I have to work with people who aren't affirming to talk to them about being affirming. And a lot of people would say, well, those people are toxic. But when I go like, I've got to figure out a way to reach these toxic people and talk to them. And then when my LGBTQ friends sometimes will go like, why are you talking to them? Or why are you giving them empathy? Or why are you, I'm like, because this is how we build community. Because this is how we build a movement. I've seen people change through relationships more than I've even seen them change through scriptures or anything like that. And I can support the scriptures, but we have to talk to each other. We have to show each other respect. That's why it's the narrow road. That's why the Bible talks about the narrow road. And that's really tough, And so for me right now, is one of the things I'm trying to do is why I feel like personally attacked is like I've got one particular relationship I'm thinking of that I really have to be in. It's something that it's like just something part of my life. And so it's like I've got to decide for myself how I react, how I treat that person, how I communicate. And do I show grace? And do I show mercy? And or am I just cold? You know, and and what I started to realize is that sometimes we allow people to dictate how we're going to treat them back because they treat us badly, and we feel hurt, and we kind of grasp at our pearls and go, how dare they? And so we give it back. And when we can give back kindness, it's hard. It's hard to give back kindness. It's tough. It's tough to pick up your cross. It's tough to die to yourself. But this is dying to yourself. When I was raised as a kid, I was told dying to myself was like not listening to secular music or going to rated R movies or hanging out with the wrong crowd. Like that was picking up the cross. But what I realized is for me is picking up the cross is not, dying to my flesh isn't that stuff. Oh, don't lust, don't look at the girls in the bikinis or whatever, but for me, it's not about that, For me, it's about, it's about going, okay, I'm going to try to love people who disagree with me. I'm going to try to disagree well. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up when people who, with over misunderstandings. Because it's tough. This is a tough world. You do a lot of work in one area, and then people get mad at you from that area, and you don't know what to do, and you go, but it's all just going like, I have to, one, kind of trust something greater than myself, this idea of grace, and continue to show grace. And hopefully those who get angry with me loving the other, I can say, okay, well, this is how I love the other. This is the best I can do. And this is what my calling is. And it doesn't change the way I love you, So I'm going to love those people. I am not only going to love my enemies, which that's what I'm really talking about, is how do I love my enemies? But I may also love your enemies. And to be honest with you, I could probably use you loving my enemies because it'd probably be a little bit easier for you to love my enemies. I'll love your enemies. We love each other's enemies, and maybe we can see change happen. And that's one of the great things I always liked about being an ally, was that I could go in and have tougher conversations and not feel so personally attacked, that I could go there and I could confront these issues, these really tough issues, and not, I'm not carrying all that baggage with me, that I could kind of take a bullet, you know what I mean? That you could kind of take the things for that. You can kind of, and also I could be a lot more blunt and a lot more honest and a lot more angry. Because it wasn't so personally my fight, even though it was from people I loved and cared about. But I could also be the bad cop. And I liked that job, honestly, saying, like, you don't understand what's going on here. And I think we could use more of that with each other, is that sometimes maybe we do stick up for one another. Maybe we do care for one another. Maybe we do help each other with each other's people that are tough in their lives. There's always going to be people who push and test us, but I feel like that idea of praying from afar even is important, because it's like loving from afar is because I want to see people become healthier. That's the idea behind this work, is how do we help each other become healthier? How do we not write each other up? How do we never give up? Like really, like Corinthians 13, 4-7. How do we never give up on each other? Because honestly, in the culture today, the America is completely divided, and we're all about giving up on somebody else because they don't say this right, or they don't do this right, or they don't think this, or they don't recognize this, or they don't say that, or they don't vote, or they vote for this, or they believe this, or they don't believe that. And it's just become this great thing of legalism of how do we, well, I won't recognize them. But I'm going like, well, if I subscribe to this faith called Christianity, this ideals called Christianity, then that's not I don't have that choice. I got to love people. My choice is I got to love my enemy as well. And there's certain people I'm going to have to love from afar because I can't do it very well. But I also, we're going to reach out to other people and say, hey, can you help me with this situation? But it's tough because there's not a lot of people to do that. I mean, life is really lonely. Life is really tough. People often don't care. I think that's why it's important that we learn to listen, that we learn to empathize, that we learn to show sympathy to each other as much as we can, because it's not it's not, it's not easy, and we have to be in this together. And that's why I talk about community. And that's why I think when I think back of like what Dr. King was doing in the civil rights movement, is that he was, looking for change in people and seeing who would join the movement. And when someone came and said, well, I'm not a racist anymore, but I was, and I did all this horrible stuff, he didn't go, well, I'm sorry, because you're a racist, you can't join us. You go, oh, praise God, you're awesome. Join us. We need more people to work and help do this stuff. We're going to be a community and we're going to change these things. And that's what happened. And I feel like we've become so jaded in this country, especially, is that we're, and just this whole like ideal of like, honestly, I will just say, like, I feel like white people took woke and just ruined it, to be honest with you. I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback for that, but took this idea because it's not just like now we know what's going on and we really got our ear to the, now it's like, no, if you're not this way, you're out. It's like this real, like, anal retentive way of doing things that's become very legalistic. And same thing I think you see a lot in the church, especially in the white church, is this like very judgmental, legalistic sense of, and even in the hippy dippy ones now, there's still this legalistic sense of like against the legalists. And that's like, this isn't the answer. Yes, we have to speak truth to power, but the problem is we become so distracted that we're yelling at each other because we agree with different parts of the power. And what we should do is be working together to figure out how we make this world and this life better for each other and how we encourage each other to do that. And, it's like, okay, well, maybe we can't agree that we all should have Medicare for all, but we could all probably agree that it should be cheaper to go to the doctor, and then it should be cheaper. And then we probably shouldn't have to have three different insurances just for our body. Like I have to have eye insurance and I have to have teeth insurance. We can all agree like these are areas that probably need some changing. So it's like there are things that we can agree on. We can all probably agree on that groceries are really high, and I know these are seem like small things, but it's just proof that our government's not working, and that our leaders don't have the answers, and I don't think the leaders really care about us. And I think that's a better reason to build a community of people who maybe disagree, because if we learn to disagree well, we might be able to get something that helps the world a little bit better. It's tough. So yeah, that's where I am, making tough choices to kind of just continue to move forward, and continuing to choose the road less traveled, continuing to try to love my neighbor as myself, and realizing that my neighbor is also my critic and my enemy, and trying to not allow that despair to turn into anger. Because to be honest with you, like, if you want to talk about toxicity, for me, like I don't really feel comfortable calling other people toxic necessarily. I mean, there are certain people that I would just totally say that that person is and that person is and that person is. Don't worry. I've got a lot of judgment for people. I do struggle with it. But for me, I feel like it starts to become, there's a toxicity in the idea where I start to take anger and hurt towards other things and then start to force it out towards other people. And that's what starts happening to me, is that I'm starting to have like personal loss, which is causing my patience to be less with people outside of in my work world and in my life. So like there's these personal situations that are causing me not to have as much patience and not to show as much kindness. And so what I'm trying to do is make that choice to say, listen, I'm going to take those situations and I'm going to try to take the high road in those situations. And what I'm going to have to do is just watch myself, like on social media, watch myself when I'm out in public with people, that I don't allow some of my personal frustrations to turn into anger and hurt toward other people. And when I do my best to promptly admit it and ask for grace. So that's the thing, is like showing grace, living a life of grace, I promise you, does not promise that you will get grace from people. but it's all we can do is continue to show grace, show mercy, show love. And I keep coming back to that 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, which is a wedding verse, but I've used it my whole life, and it's not really for weddings, but I mean, not everybody uses it for weddings. I used it for my first marriage. See how that worked out? Uh, you know, love never gives up, never loses faith, always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. Now, I think that's God's love for us, but I also think that's how we are called to kind of try to love each other. But we're going to need a community to do that, because there are going to be people that we have to give up. But it wouldn't it be great if we're in a community where, like, I can't handle this right now. Can you help carry the burden right now? Or I can't deal with this, or I need a break. Can you fill in for me? Can you do this? Because right now I'm just not in a place where I feel like I can share grace and mercy, you know? And so, it's, I see some conversation stuff about people going on about toxic stuff. And maybe it's, like Dr. King said, it's like people aren't my enemy, it's misinformation. And maybe what's toxic is misinformation. Or maybe what's toxic is burnout, that we live in a country where it's burnout and we don't pay people enough money. So they have to work 3 jobs, to barely make the ends meet. And that's not even a reality. Like 2 jobs is barely a reality, like of being able to have any life and have children and do these type of things, that we've required so much from humans that they're burnt out. And so maybe that's the toxicity, is the burnout, or the unrealistic demands that we're putting on people, that corporations have become so greedy. So maybe it's greed is a toxic thing. So maybe it's these things that affect us as people but aren't the people themselves. It's the things that come in them. So like, that person has toxic traits. They're greedy. They're a billionaire, and they still want more. And they don't want to pay their kid. They don't want to pay their workers enough to pay their own bills. So that seems like a toxic trait. You know what I mean? So those are things that we have to change through talking with each other and starting movements and speaking to the government and speaking truth to these things and saying, listen, I'm not going to say that you're this toxic, you're a toxic person, but you've been affected. You are infected by toxic traits of not being able to, not much less left love your neighbor, but just love even love your own family, or to love your own employees, or to love people like that. But this requires thinking, and this requires patience, and this requires growth, and this requires time. This does not happen overnight. This does not happen listening to one talk. This is something that we all have to work on together. And it's not easy. So I guess is like, what I'm trying to say is like, try to choose love when you can, and maybe back off from people right away if they're in their life, so you don't need to be their judge. You know what I mean? Because you can realize that that's when you start to become toxic, is when you start to go, oh well, I'm going to judge them and say they're evil or they're bad. Then you've just kind of you've become the judge, and you've taken on, infected this by this trait of saying, well, I'm the judge now, when it's really is like, how do we love each other enough to change each other? And that's what I find, that seems what Christ was trying to do, is trying to recognize each other's humanity, and then that within that allowing allowing that we're fallible. And once we realize we're fallible and all in need of grace, is when we can change. When we realize this is just who we are. There's parts of my life that I'm a piece of shit, or I'm judgmental, and I can accept that. And only when I accept that is when I'm able to change a little bit. Is like when I'm able to, like, that doesn't become the end all, But it's hard not to become angry at people when you start seeing people cancel people and cancel people you love and try to cancel you, and things like that. It's hard not to want to return the favor and say, well, no, that's really where the ones calling me toxic are actually the ones who are toxic. You know what I mean? It just becomes in that he said, they did, we turn into the things that we hate. And I think Nietzsche said that, when we fight monsters, we have to be careful that we don't become the monsters that we fight. And unfortunately, I feel like that's what we've done, is that things like social media have simplified it so much that now I go onto social media and I have people question, on Facebook questioning, like, Oh, are you really poor, or are you just pretending, because you're a white male, white cis male? And I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, am I pretending? Like, no, I'm not pretending. I'm trying to live a life here. I'm trying to do good work, and it's like, people are like, oh, you really believe in grace? Well, what if I say this shit about you? And what if I say this? And what if I pick you and put you in a category of sexuality and race and this and that? So now you're here, and so now I'm going to put you here and say you that I'm going to judge you. It's kind of like, this is exactly what you don't want done to you, but yet you're doing it to me, and I'm like trying really hard to like figure this out and not make me feel like I'm going unhinged, like I'm taking crazy pills. I'm like, this is the stuff that you're fighting against, yet it's okay to do to this one group and not that. What I'm saying? So it's like, and I'm not trying to defend like white heterosexual straight males. We have had it easier, but we also suffer from mental health. We also go through hard times. We also go do all this shit. We also go poor. And I think what we're realizing is that the powers that be just don't seem to care about anybody. And at least we're all becoming a little more equal now, is that they don't seem to really care about anybody. So I don't know. And honestly, like I see some of the responses, and like it's like, welcome to this or welcome to that, and it's like, my whole life's been a struggle. Since I was 11 years old, my parents were the butt of every joke. When I was 13 to 18, I spent time trying to go visit my dad in prison. And watch, and fist fight through high school. It's like, welcome to humanity. Humanity is to suffer. To live is to suffer. We all suffer. We all fall short. We all get shit. And there's some areas where, yes, I'm lucky. Like when I drive down the highway and if I speed and I get pulled over, I'm not probably likely to get shot by a cop. You know what I mean? And that, for me, there's my white privilege. But there's other areas in my life where I suffer and I struggle and I want to give up and I want to take my own life and I hurt and I feel pain. And when we get into this concept of playing this game of the hierarchy of suffering, then it becomes harder to have these arguments again and to have good conversation and good arguments and good disagreement. So it's this idea of, can we I don't know. I hope some of you are taking this seriously, because honestly, I feel like we've got to start taking this shit seriously. We're all suffering, we're all dying, and life is really tough right now for everybody. I'm tired. I'm too tired. I love you guys. I hope you have a good week. I can't do this week. I'm just too tired. I'm hurting too. So there you go. Peace, everybody. Live in grace much as you can. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.